Could Pete Alonso, Anthony Santander, and Jack Flaherty all sign shorter-term deals, or is this a manufacturing of the media around this time of year? That and more ahead here at The Upside. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us late on a Saturday evening. Unfortunately, the games weren't overly competitive today, so we got to watch the Texans demolish the Chargers, who had their worst game of the season in the playoffs, unfortunately. And then we watched the Baltimore Ravens just decimate the Steelers. They tried making it a game in the second half, but ultimately the game, neither one of them was really watchable. But hopefully you guys are here, so ready to talk some baseball. So let's dig into a few of these things. Rafe, Holly, Blair, Justin, Verlis, welcome in. Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll start with the only big news item of the day is that Pete Alonso, we described last night as being open to a short-term deal, at least with the New York Mets, that he himself had offered the club a short-term deal with opt-outs after the first and second year for Pete Alonso. But now on the heels of that report comes reports also that Anthony Santander and Jack Flaherty may also be open to a shorter-term contract. I'm calling a bunch of baloney on that as far as Jack Flaherty is concerned. He just went through this whole free agency process a year ago, signed a short-term deal, 1 year, $9 million to stay with, or to go to the Detroit Tigers. Had a great first half, struggled in the second half. He is looking for long-term security. I don't think he's going to sign a 1 year deal. Maybe he signs a highly lucrative 2 or 3 year deal, But I think he's looking for bigger money. We'll see where he goes. I know the Cubs had interest before they signed Colin Ray. I'd imagine they are out of the market now for Jack Flaherty. Other clubs that have at least reached out, as far as that we've heard of anyway, the Toronto Blue Jays, the Baltimore Orioles, the Atlanta Braves, among several others as well. But I'll be curious where he ultimately goes. As far as Santander, originally he was looking for a 5-year deal, around $100 million. I think there's still money on the table from a team like the Toronto Blue Jays. I don't think he needs to sign a short-term deal. However, if he wants to go to, say, a contending team, a team that's really trying to push for a World Series, maybe he takes a shorter-term contract. Say Pete Alonso does not sign with the New York Mets. Say they put Vientos over there at first base and bring in Santander or Bregman or whoever else they've decided to bring in. Maybe he decides to go that route on a shorter-term deal. Is that overly likely? Not a chance. I think he's still going to get the long-term contract he is looking for. I think this all the news that we saw today about people looking for shorter-term deals. I get it. We're in the new year, 2025. Spring training is about a month away. Pitchers and catchers report in less than a month. I get it. It's time to get to know where you're going to play next season. But I think this is purely contrived by either A, the media itself just trying to make stuff up to at least be able to create reports about what could possibly be happening, or two, they're being fed information from the clubs, which is probably more likely. I think the clubs are trying to lower prices after how high prices were at the earlier points in the offseason. I think now's where the teams are starting to look for deals and are wondering why prices are so high. Well, that's just the price of poker, my friend. If you want to get, the big free agent target that you were looking for all off season, you ain't going to pay pennies on the dollar. You might be able to pay, full market value. You might have to pay a little bit over market value, but you certainly are not getting a discount on players like that. So we'll see what happens with those three. But if I had to guess, Alonzo out of those three might be the only one that ultimately takes a short-term deal, because I think the Mets would like to do something like that with him. As far as Santander and Flaherty, I think both of those guys are going to be able to find and sign a long-term deal. Appreciate you guys joining us. Go ahead and check out a few of these comments here today. Rafe, how about your Texans taking care of business? Yeah, I saw those comments by Rex Ryan about a bye week. I think they completely squashed that possibility into the second quarter anyway, and then just rolled in the second half. Welcome in, Holly. Rafe, Sasaki most likely signing Friday. Honestly, I don't think so. I think this is probably going to take a little bit more time with Roki Sasaki. The reason being is because we have a template anyway of how this usually goes with Shohei Ohtani. Remember, we kind of had an idea where he was going to go, but the Angels made 4 trades to be able to clear off $1 million extra in bonus, or to gain an extra $1 million they could give him in bonus pool money. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the team trading for international bonus pool money is going to be able to get Roki Sasaki. For instance, say the Dodgers and Padres both are acquiring international bonus pool money after January 15th, which, by the way, starts the day you can actually start trading for that international bonus pool money. You can't start trading for it now. You have to trade for it the 15th or after to put that money towards Roki Sasaki or whoever you might want to sign out of that out of the 2025 class. So kind of keep that in mind when you hear about these international bonus pool deals that we just saw go down about a month ago. Those deals are not going to have any bearing on Roki Sasaki. Only the deals that happen the 15th or after will have any impact on the money he or any other club could give to international free agents. So keep that one in mind. As for why I think it's going to take after the 15th, I think we will see some trades being made to either A, create some more space, be able to get some more international bonus pool money to be able to give it to Roki Sasaki, or B, give it to other players that they might want to sign in addition to Roki. Remember, Roki said, hey, if you guys want to get, I want the team to have the greatest chance of success. So if that means I have to take slightly less, because he's already getting $200 million less than what he would get on the open market in a couple of years, if you guys need an extra $500,000 to be able to sign some international free agents, by all means, go for it. But he wants to make sure that he is in the best position to succeed. Now, if that money is just going to be spent on for no reason, they don't have a plan for that money, then give it to Roki. What are we waiting for here? But I would expect the deal to happen between the 15th and the 23rd. If I had to guess, probably between the 17th and 23rd sounds more realistic. Now, we may have an inkling as far as where he's going to go before that, But as it stands right now, we really haven't heard any teams that he's actually gone to visit yet. As far as at their ballpark in their city, that was the next step in Roki Sasaki's free agency. So kind of keep all those things in mind when you hear things about Roki. That all of that has to happen, and we'll see where he goes. There are 6 teams, maybe 7 on Roki Sasaki. I know there are some fans out there from teams that are not mentioned in that 7-team group, like the Red Sox fans who've tried to make some scuttlebutt over the last couple of days that they might ultimately get a meeting with him. If they do, so be it. But I think every team in the league would love to have a guy like Roki Sasaki. I still think the favorite is still the Dodgers. But I think the other teams that Ken Rosenthal and others have mentioned as possibilities or favorites for Roki, the 6-7 teams that I've mentioned before, Padres, Dodgers, Mariners, Rangers, Cubs, Mets, and Yankees, I think all of those teams are pretty much the likely targets for where he will go. Player time. I think the Tigers should take a pass on Bregman and pick up as they need it at the deadline. Let the kids play now. They got a taste of winning. They do have a prospect coming as well. Both the Red Sox and Tigers both have prospects coming that could take their time for Bregman. I understand Bregman was down the last couple of years statistically, but he was back to the old Alex Bregman for the final 4 months of the season last year. He's still an impact righty bat that the Tigers and Red Sox both need. Fills a need defensively in their infield as well. And oh, by the way, all the leadership qualities that we've mentioned ad nauseum so far this offseason, I think he would be a great pickup for either team. I think it's going to come between the Red Sox, Tigers, and Blue Jays still. I still think the Tigers are the team that gets him if they can get the money to work. But it sounds like the Red Sox may have an option for him either at third base or second, depending on how they decide to deploy their infield. Seems they're very hesitant on spending the money, though. They're the guy that actually makes the decisions there, Craig Breslow, as far as which players they're going to go after, he seems a little bit cooler on the idea than on Alex Bregman than some of the other guys in that same front office. So kind of a little bit of cold water, more up and downs for the Red Sox as to whether or not they're going to spend or not spend, add or not add via free agency. So more roller coaster rides ahead here for the Red Sox faithful. Justin, greetings from France, 535. Well, appreciate you joining us. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate you guys joining us here at The Upside every single night. We'll be live around 9, 10 o'clock every single night, bringing you the latest from MLB's Hot Stove and during the regular season every single night as well. Bringing you all the latest rumors, trades, signings, all the latest injury updates, all those things and more are going to be held here at The Upside. So follow us here, hit that like, subscribe. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. All right, let's try to catch up on a few more of these comments here. Verles, excuse me. Welcome in, Sergeant Hayes. Welcome back. Sean, Heel, appreciate you guys joining us. Both games were no surprise. Kind of what I thought too. I know there was the Chargers were a 3-point favorite going into the game against the Texans today, but they got the whole Los Angeles wildfire thing going on. Maybe getting out of LA would have been good for them to be away from it, be able to focus on the game, but that's a lot to deal with going on back home. And I thought the Texans actually have a pretty good defense this year that could give fits to that offense, and they certainly did. And they won the game primarily because of that defense in the second half. Who wins, Notre Dame or Ohio State? My pick all along has been Notre Dame, so you guys can check back in the videos from a few weeks ago. I've got Notre Dame winning this thing. My second pick was Texas, so Ohio State at least beat out my second runner-up anyway, but Notre Dame is still my pick. Pete got humbled by the market. I don't think he got necessarily humbled, though. I think that the market really moved on without him. A lot of the places that he was hoping to use as leverage against the Mets ultimately dried up sooner than I think he was hoping for. I still think he's going to get a good deal, whether it's a short-term deal at $30 million AAV or a little bit higher than that remains to be seen, or if he signs a bigger contract, a 5-6 year deal in the $120 to $150 million range. I don't think he was ever going to get 6 at 240 like I saw some reports out there. No way was he ever getting that kind of money, but I will say the market dried up a lot faster than I think he was hoping for. I think there's still enough interest there. Alonzo could get whatever deal he's looking for. I think the Blue Jays have at least kicked the tires on him. The Giants have as well. The Mets, of course, are still in the running there, and I think you don't make the signing of Juan Soto and then leave Pete Alonso out there in free agency and just say, we'll make do at first base with our, back or with our protection in the lineup for Juan Soto. He'll be fine. He doesn't need anybody hitting behind him. I'm sorry, you just made a $765 million investment over 15 years in Juan Soto, and you're not going to in year one protect him in that lineup and really push the pedal to push the pedal all the way to the floorboard. Come on now. If you're the Mets, you have to get that deal done. And I understand the hesitation. You want to keep the price as reasonable as possible. But at a certain point, you realize, hey, Steve Cohen's our owner. We have the deep pockets. While we might not go a long-term deal for you, Pete, the 3-year deal that you propose with opt-outs, that sounds a lot more palatable to us. Where do we sign? That's probably what will ultimately happen if he goes back to the Mets. Because remember, that is the only team he is willing to discuss a short-term contract with. All right, Heel. I was thinking about something. Alex Bregman is from New Mexico, so a mystery team could be in on him. Are the San Francisco Giants? They have been reported as a mystery team in the past. I think the signing of Willie Adames pretty much locks up their infield with what they have on the left side with Chapman and Adames over there. They would have to play him over there at second base, I suppose. Maybe at first base until their prospect is ready to go. But I don't see a long-term fit there with San Francisco. I think his swing would work even worse there in San Francisco. But if the money is right, maybe he takes the deal. But I think with Chapman already being there and with Adames freshly being signed there, I don't think there's a spot for him that easily fits with the San Francisco Giants. Early in France, yes. Congratulations to my Texans, although I still think we aren't a Super Bowl threat until we beat a legit contender. No offense to Charger fans. I thought the Chargers were a good team this year. I think they were a year ahead of schedule. All the close games that they won, all the times they would kick field goals instead of putting the ball into the end zone. This offense was great between the 20s, but they couldn't run the ball effectively enough. They couldn't put the ball in the end zone whenever they got inside the red zone. Put the ball in the end zone when they got into the red zone. But I didn't see the Chargers being the favorites in this one. To me, the Texans should have been the favorite in that one going away. Rafe, I saw a trade proposal like Robert from the White Sox for the Mets number 5 prospect. I don't remember who it was, though. We can check that one out here in just a moment. We can do that. Alrighty, let's try to catch up on a few of these comments here. Yeah, I can't sleep. Okay. Lucas, welcome back. Abraham, thank you for joining us once again. Do you think loaning players would be a great idea in MLB? Heck no. Not no, but heck no. I do not want any type of English Premier League or international soccer coming in as far as loaning players to another team. Just no. That's what trades are for. Pirates signed an international pick away from the Dodgers today. They doubled the Dodgers' offer for him. Yes, Verlis, that was what I was going to bring up. Morel, the prospect that you mentioned there, was originally going to sign for $900,000 once January 15th hit with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Ultimately, he got a better deal from the Pittsburgh Pirates for $1.8 million. So, good deal for him. I was actually trying to look up some additional information on him right before we went live anyway. But I think the bigger story is how this will affect Roki Sasaki. One, maybe the world is already shifting underneath our feet before we even realizing it. Prospects are realizing, hey, that $900,000 deal that I had with the Dodgers, that's gone, up in smoke. So let's go ahead and find another spot to go to, and since the Dodgers are going to spend it all on Roki anyway. Or B, other teams are seeing the vulnerability of the deals that the Dodgers and other teams that are trying to sign Roki Sasaki that they have right now, and trying to take advantage of it by offering more than those teams and seeing if they can get prospects that they may not have had otherwise had access to. So kind of keep that in mind as far as both sides of that conversation. One, it could have something to do with Roki Sasaki as far as where he could ultimately be going. Or B, it could be other teams trying to take advantage of the market around Roki Sasaki before we even get there. So remember, none of these guys can actually sign on the dotted line until the 15th. Maybe Morel will find another deal even bigger before then. But kind of an interesting note that I saw today. Good eye there, Verlis. Glad I wasn't the only one that caught that one. Abraham, Sasaki's agent, said he's most likely to sign 3 days before his deadline. That does sound about right. Remember, we just talked about how the 15th is when he is eligible to start signing for the international bonus pool money for 2025. We just talked about how Otani's a good case study for how that process will go. You may have an inclination of where he's going to go, but the deal might actually come together a few days later because they may be trying to acquire international bonus pool money, shifting things around financially just to make it work a little bit better. But as long as they get it done before that posting window closes on the 23rd, everything should be just fine. So we will have some resolution anyway inside of the next 10 to 12 days. All right, Lucas. Ain't no way Sasaki, a team, will pay him $500,000 less for some random player who won't be half as good. Well, Sasaki himself mentioned it in meetings with teams. That's what Joel Wolf said, is that Sasaki brought it up, not the teams. And he said, I guess he's just trying to be a good team guy. But if I were in his shoes, I'd be trying to maximize his money as well. But if I was trying to maximize money from the beginning, why wouldn't I just wait for 2 years and sign $200 million? So again, what's the point in waiving $200 million to fight over $500,000? So I think at that point we're just quibbling over small details here. Other teams have a little bit bigger bonus pool than others. You see the pools are usually between 5.4 million to 7.1, 7.5, somewhere in there. And you can trade the international bonus pool money in $250,000 increments in trades. So kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at these deals that are going to happen around the 15th. I would expect a flurry of activity both on the international bonus pool front as far as where trades are happening with that money, and B, with all the free agents that are going to sign on that day. We'll actually check out some of those guys here in just a moment. No further study here. American, okay. Best chance to succeed equals Dodgers. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. Honestly, I think he's going to be a great starter either way. I think he's probably number 2 his first year over. I think he's probably an ace on somebody's staff in year 2 or year 3. That's kind of how I see his arc really going here. But I would say the best chance to immediately win a World Series would be the Dodgers. They are the favorite right now, even without him being on the roster. But if you're looking to win a World Series, I would say the Dodgers. If you're trying to be the best pitcher yourself that you can be, maybe going to a team where you're going to be counted on and relied on as that number 1 starter and take on the great teams that are out there. It'd be the better case study for you to really prove yourself that you are the greatest, that you can be the best player to ever play, those kinds of things. And that seems to be what's motivating Roki Sasaki more than anything else. Let's go make where. Okay. Heel, I think Santander saying he's okay with the shorter term deal just made his market more interesting, and a lot more teams are going to try to sign him. I still think he's going to get the long term deal, mainly because I think a team like the Tigers still has interest there if they don't bring in Bregman. I think the Blue Jays have a standing offer to him of 5 years or more. I think he's still going to do very well in free agency. Now, maybe he does sign somewhere else. Maybe he's looking to stay in a World Series contending type of situation. He just was there with the Baltimore Orioles, at least in a contending situation like that. Now they just, of course, still need a number 1 starter there in Baltimore. But if you're looking at Santander and you're looking at all these other teams that may still be one bat away from winning a World Series, maybe you are open to taking a shorter-term deal with, say, the Atlanta Braves on a 1-year deal. Not saying they have the money for it, but I'm just saying a team that your bat being in that lineup could push them up a rung as far as contention for a World Series. Just kind of interesting there for Santander, but I think the market for him pretty much is spoken. That there is plenty of interest there. The Tigers and the Blue Jays, I keep bringing them up because I think the Blue Jays are going to be the team that he ultimately signs with. Let's see here. Rave, Texans finna get revenge on Kansas City, and then best case would be versus the Bills instead of the Ravens. But I don't know, maybe we finally get revenge on the Ravens. Defense is top 3 all year. Offense finally did something good today. Yes, they did. They finally did something, yes. I will agree there. Mixon finally got back to being the running back we expected him to be. He was averaging 32 yards a game the previous 4 games. That defense is what they're going to have to hang their hats on no matter who they go up against in the next round. And C.J. Stroud cannot turn the ball over, period. So that's the formula for a Texans win, but that's, literally walking a tightrope against any one of those other 3 teams. Bills, Chiefs, or Ravens. Mets rotation isn't great. If Alonzo leaves Mets, I'm surprised. Welcome in, Ethan, Nando. Appreciate you joining us once again. Mets rotation is not great. I will give you that. We actually proposed a trade about a week ago anyway. If they did find an opportunity to improve that rotation before spring training, maybe they try to take advantage of it, see if they could bring in a number 1A, 1B type of starter with Senga. That'd be one way to really push this team over the top as far as that rotation is concerned. But they do not want to spend long-term money in that rotation. That's why they didn't go after Corbin Burnes quite as hard. So I think if there's a trade target at the deadline that fits their needs, they will be right in there for that starting pitcher. They are in there for Tanner Scott, trying to shorten the game at the 8th and 9th inning. Diaz in the 9th, Scott in the 8th. We'll see if they get that one to cross the finish line. But I would agree there with you, Nando. The Mets rotation isn't great, but I would say it's a pretty solid one. I like Senga. I like Manaea. I like some of the additions that they made in Montas and Holmes, but it is more question marks at the back half of that rotation than some of the other staffs that they're going to be going up against. For instance, the Dodgers, easily a better rotation. The Phillies, an easily better rotation. The Braves, probably a little bit better when they're all healthy, but I'd say right now they still need a number 5 starter there. We'll see who they bring in. If they bring in somebody like a Jack Flaherty, then I would say the Braves have a better rotation as well. But that lineup is where they're going to win. That's their bread and butter this year. And so if they can get that lineup to really produce, which is where Alonzo would come in on a shorter-term deal to the Mets' liking, I think that would work really well for them as they try to push their chips to the center and beat the LA Dodgers and go on to the World Series. Alrighty, if Alonzo leave the Mets, you're surprised. I would agree there. Alrighty. Trying to catch up on a few of these comments here. Sean, what hitters are of interest to the Cubs? I haven't heard too many hitters, to be honest. I have heard Yoan Moncada. That was one name I had heard. Alex Verdugo I had heard mentioned as well. Grichuk at one point, but I think that was early in free agency. Verdugo was one of the names I had heard, and Moncada were the most recent ones. But I think they're primarily focused on the bullpen right now. I'd say Kirby Yates is one name they've been connected to. Tanner Scott, but I don't think they have the money for that one anymore. Then they would look at the trade market. Most notably, Ryan Helsley and Ryan Presley would be the two guys I would expect the Cubs to try to push for before spring training begins. Pete didn't get humbled by the market. It's just we are in a different era. People value athletes more than just your stereotypical power hitter nowadays. Juan Soto is the exception. Juan Soto is also a decent base runner. At least the numbers say he is. He's a decent fielder. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a great fielder by the time his prime is over. I think that contract will look quite onerous by the time that deal gets out of his prime years. That's when that deal will start to look really ugly. But that power still plays. His contact rate, his on-base percentage, ability to work a walk, all those things work in Juan Soto's favor. But as far as Pete Alonso, he's more of a one-trick pony than anything else. Power, 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 ground into double play, strikeouts. That's about it. He doesn't exactly hit for a high average. Doesn't exactly spray the ball over the yard. He's the guy that's going to try to, you knock it over the fence every time he's up there, and if it doesn't work, so be it. If there's runners on first and second, one out, and he rolls it over to first base, so be it. That's an easy double play, but that's the game he plays. Now, as far as the first base DH power hitter market that you referenced there, we've seen this trend for years now, where first baseman DHs are not valued in this market at all. We see them get short-term deals, one-year deals, non-roster invitees. For instance, the Texas Rangers, I'd imagine, are going to bring in a couple of guys to push for a platoon spot at first base. Do I think they'll make the roster? Probably not, because that's not the positions that are usually paid for anymore. For instance, Joey Gallo would still probably get a deal somewhere as far as a major league roster deal, even with his horrible numbers as far as strikeout rate and all those other issues, because power was what used to really be paid for. Now, power is still seen as a value, but you have to have a little bit more than that, be able to make at least solid contact rates, have a batting average above 220. Look at Kyle Schwarber. He has an average around 220, but his walk rates are really high. He's able to manage the plate really well. He can't just be a one-trick pony anymore, and so Pete Alonso, I think, doesn't necessarily have the defensive versatility to be able to hold up at first base in the long term, which will hurt his market in those 4 or 5 year contract offers. Now, as far as the Mets, They need somebody to back up Juan Soto in that lineup, first and foremost. You don't bring back Pete Alonso. Where are you going to go for that lineup protection? You're going to go to Bregman? You're going to go to Santander? You're going to go to the trade market? Because on your roster, I don't see the fit. I don't see who's going to be hitting behind Juan Soto in that lineup as currently constructed. We'll see where they go, but I think Pete Alonso is the guy I would try to bring back if I'm the Mets. Where does Tanner Scott go? If I had to guess right now, I'd still say to the Dodgers. I think they're the most heavily interested team in him. If he doesn't go there, the other two favorites are easily the New York Yankees and New York Mets. Beyond that, it could be a dark horse team, like the Chicago Cubs that I mentioned. The Rangers are still looking for a closer, but I think it's primarily going to be one of those three clubs. Dodgers, Mets, Yankees. If I had to pick one, I would say the Dodgers. Let's see here. Lucas, trades are equivalent to transfers. Loan deal is a new concept in American sports. Yes, but I'll put it this way. You're still on loan. Doesn't the premise of a loan, meaning you get back the value over a course of time, or you return the property at a certain point? I would still rather just keep the system that we already have. Welcome in Rashad, Rich, Kingston. Appreciate all you guys joining us. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. We'll be live every single night, breaking down all the latest news and headlines, speculation, everything around the wide world of baseball. MLB Hot Stove, we got you covered here at the Upside. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Let's see here. Do you think what's going on in California changes Roki's perspective on joining the Dodgers? Not even one little bit. Nothing. Nope. Zero. Nothing. Rich, any news on the Rangers? Chris Young was on foul territory the other day. Got a good health update on Josh Young. Basically, everything is all good to go. He's having a normal offseason so far. Same thing with Evan Carter. So hopefully the Rangers will start off on a much better footing than where they were a year ago when they were expecting to be without Jacob deGrom and Tyler Mahle. And then immediately 4 games into the season, they lose Josh Young for a couple of months. And so forth and so on. Down the list, the injury issues went. And then in the first month, I think they were down 4 of their 5 starters that they broke camp with, on top of the other starters who were already out. The funny part is that the rotation actually held up the pieces that they kept bringing in. However, you kind of realize where the issues were for the Rangers last year. Offense really didn't perform, and that pitching staff was not what you expected it to be. Injuries kind of riddled it throughout the entire season. And then the bullpen was a big issue. Bullpen, they really took to task this offseason. They've already made 5 additions back there. They're still looking for another closer. I don't believe any word Fenstermaker, what's his name? Fenstermaker? I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing his name. But anyway, the new general manager of the Texas Rangers basically paid lip service to the fact that, hey, we don't have a whole lot of money. We like our bullpen. We like the addition of Chris Martin. We have guys that we can put back there if we need to as a closer. But we don't really need to make a move. We're good. Not buying it at all. Not even one little bit. They still need a proven closer back there. Sure, if that proven closer falters, then you have several guys in-house that you can turn to. Mark Church probably gets the first crack. He's probably going to be the closer until he got hurt last year in the minor leagues anyway, before he really got up to the big league level. Josh Sborz, who got the final out in the World Series, could be a closer option for you as well. There's a few other guys at Double-A that could work, but as far as a proven option, they don't really have that option. And Chris Martin, the most saves he's had in one season up till now is 4. He's not exactly ready for a 40-save season. Now, I'm sure he can handle it, the mental aspects of it, but I want somebody who's been there and done that in the 9th inning, and that's why I think they're still looking for a closer, both on the free agent market and trade, however they can best acquire the talent that they need. Alrighty, Kingston, who did the Pirates sign? Well, they're going to sign Morel, the prospect anyway, that was going to be signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers for $900,000. The Pirates are getting him for $1.8 million of their international bonus pool when the bonus pool period becomes effective on the 15th. So good deal there for both sides. I think the Dodgers are probably the most likely team that Sasaki goes to. If they don't get Sasaki, then this loss of Morel hurts them a little bit more. But I think now they have more money to go out there and spend on international free agency. I don't think the Dodgers are a team that we ever have to worry about as far as their ability to recruit international talent. For the Pirates, They had to give double the value of what the Dodgers were willing to do for the same player. So tells you one of two things. Either A, Dodgers are saying, hey, we see the writing on the wall. Go ahead. If you can find a better deal elsewhere, go for it. We're ready to sign Roki. Or option B, the Pirates are taking advantage of the Dodgers and other teams in this same similar scenario and saying, hey, I know you're ready to sign with them, but you're already decreasing your cost or your signing bonus here. Why don't you go ahead and sign with us? We'll give you double that value, whereas the Dodgers won't. And by the way, if they do sign Roki, there's no guarantee that you get that deal anyway. So we'll see which story ends up playing out to be true. If it's the Pirates just trying to take advantage of the situation, or is this some foreshadowing on Roki Sasaki? But if I had to guess, I'd probably say it's more of the former, where we're seeing the Pirates trying to take advantage of the teams that are in the running for Roki, rather than a decision from Roki as of yet. Let's see here. Closest thing to have is posting system. Answer your question there, Sean. Let's see here. Rich is Sasaki coming and joining Boch and the boys in Arlington. DeGrom, Eovaldi, Sasaki, Bradford, and Rocker would be the best top to bottom rotation in the game. I don't know about the best. I would say it's certainly up there, probably in the top 5. I'd say the Dodgers have a case for that one. I'd say the Mariners have a case for that one. The Phillies have a case for that one. The Yankees have a case for that one. And then the Rangers would be in that group. But there's a lot of injury risk and a lot of young talent in that Rangers rotation. If all things work out, absolutely, they should be in the top 5. But if they don't, which it hasn't worked very well the last 2 years for the Rangers, if it works out, though, they could be in the top 5. Who you got, Notre Dame or Ohio State? Notre Dame. They were my pick before this whole thing started, and I am still sticking with Notre Dame. This Vikings Bills Super Bowl will hit like I like that one, Lucas. I'm rooting for the Vikings. My dad grew up a Vikings fan. I'm originally from South Dakota, so Vikings were my first ever favorite football team before I moved down to Texas and sadly became a Cowboys fan. But I will be cheering hard for the Vikings. They got a tough road, though. They don't win the division. They're going to have to go on the road to do it. Sam Darnold looked human for the first time this season last week. And I'm hoping they're able to get things back working in the right way. So that's what I'm hoping for. The Vikings figure things out and win and move on and just figure it out week to week. But I am hoping for them to get to the Super Bowl. My dad has his birthday on Super Bowl weekend. That's what we celebrate. His birthday is the Super Bowl every year. And it would be great to have his favorite team, the Vikings, in it for the first time since, I don't know, I can remember it, them being in it when I'm alive anyway. And then the other team on the AFC side of it, I know he's a big Patrick Mahomes fan anyway. So he likes great quarterback play. So he enjoyed Tom Brady when he was around. He enjoys Patrick Mahomes. So I think for him, he would love to see Mahomes versus the Vikings. And then I'm pretty sure he'll be rooting for the Vikings anyway. But at least he'll know he'll get some good quarterback play no matter what you think Mahomes did during the season. There is no doubt he's the greatest quarterback in the game right now. It's not a great stretch to say so. MVPs, Super Bowl victories, just knowing how to win goes a long way. That's the way Brady did it for years and years and years in New England. And every time we look up, they're in the AFC Championship game trying to go to a Super Bowl. And that's what this year kind of reminds me of quite a bit for the Kansas City Chiefs. But I'll be pulling hard for the Vikings as well. Verlis, do you think the players that may get traded for bonus pool money will be just for prospects? No, actually. We saw kind of a little bit of this in years past where teams will try to get a little bit of extra money here and there. They'll trade a guy who they're going to DFA and say, hey, instead of DFAing this guy, why don't you give us, or instead of just losing him for nothing in free agency or through designating him for assignment, why don't we trade the guy that we're close to DFAing, but keep the guy that's at the very back end of our roster, trade somebody that has a little bit more value, and make sure we get back international bonus pool money. That's one way they could go. Another way is just trading prospects who may be aging out of your system. For instance, Diego Cartaya, who just got traded to the Minnesota Twins, that could have been an international bonus pool money type of deal there. But the Dodgers needed the roster space before the 15th, so unfortunately they couldn't use him to be able to bring in some international bonus pool money after the 15th. So I think they would, if they had to do it over again, they would have rather had it more stretched out and signed the guys later, signed Kim later. But his posting date was up, and he had to sign, so they had to get it done. Cartaya got DFA'd, and so therefore the trade happened with the Minnesota Twins. So both major league roster players and prospects, I think, will be traded for bonus pool money between the 15th and the 18th. Dashing Quinn, appreciate you joining us. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Really appreciate you guys joining us tonight. If you guys are new here, we cover MLB's hot stove season all off season long and throughout the regular season as well. All the latest news, rumors, headlines, speculation, predictions, everything you could possibly want from your favorite sport of baseball, we got you covered here. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Got about 60 of you guys with us. We're at 24 likes. Let's see if we can bump that number up just a little bit before we head off the air in the next 20 minutes or so. But thank you guys for joining us. Follow us on X at Upside Ascend and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. All right. Let's see. Trying to catch up with some of these comments here. Been lurking. Just wanted to say hi, Mariners fan, and I just wish the team will sign someone. You and me both. I am a Rangers fan, but the biggest thing I like about baseball is that the majority of teams do things really intelligently. With the exception of one major team out there that you in my entire chat can tell you who I think that team is that doesn't do things the smartest in baseball right now. There, you could make a case that the Rockies could be in that category as well, but the Angels for sure are the team that does not make smart decisions. But your Mariners, Jerry DiPoto, Trader Jerry anyway, kind of channeling his inner Jerry Jones, constantly making trades and deals. Jones has kind of settled down in his older age as he's kind of gotten more familiar with the players on his club, keeps his homegrown talent. Mariners kind of slowed down as far as the trades they made over the last 6 months as well. So Mariners need to address that lineup more than anything else. They're going to have to free up some money. The ownership group there has said, hey, $15 million is all you have left to add to this roster. That's not enough to be able to bring in any impact bat via free agency. So the option that they're going to have to go with is just destroying that rotation, the greatest rotation the Mariners have ever had, by trading Luis Castillo because he makes the most money off of that, and they can flip him for maybe a couple of bats to help out that lineup. For a Mariners fan, a trade that I posted a couple of weeks ago anyway, Luis Arraez and Jake Cronenworth from the Padres go to Seattle in exchange for Luis Castillo. Castillo becomes a long-term answer in the rotation down there in San Diego. Meanwhile, the Padres could then try to trade Dylan Cease and recoup some value for him before they lose him for nothing in free agency. Now that you know the cost of what Arraez is going to be this year and for what the money is on Cronenworth, that'd be a good trade, I would say, for the Mariners because they get two offensive pieces for basically the same money as what they're giving out in Luis Castillo. And they have that $15 million with which that they that the ownership group said that they could spend in addition to what their current roster was. Now you can take that $15 million and instead of looking for that impact bat, which you got via the trade in Luis Arraez, now you can kind of supplement the offense a little bit. Maybe bring in a power bat, just to kind of round out this lineup. You already have a Rosarena in there. You have Julio Rodriguez. Maybe bring back a Justin Tucker on an $8 or $9 million deal. Maybe a $5 million deal with incentives at the back end of it if he really has a great year. Maybe you try to pry away a Jurickson Profar from the Padres via free agency. Maybe you go after a Randall Grichuk, a platoon advantage in the outfield. All kinds of ways the Mariners could decide to use that money if they traded for Luis Arraez and Jake Cronenworth. There are other trade possibilities out there. The Orioles have been interested in Luis Castillo. The return would probably be Mountcastle, and that's about it. And then you'd have a little extra money to go along with that $15 million to spend in free agency. Then you could possibly get into the market for a Santander, but I'm not sure you'd have that much money to work with. But if you backload the deal, maybe you could shoehorn it in there. But I think the best option would be try to use that Castillo deal to bring in two offensive bats, and then try to use the rest of the money that you have to bring in at least one free agent for you. So there's your kind of your Mariners breakdown as to what they could add for you, Dashing. If you guys are new here, if you're just joining us for the first time, really appreciate you guys taking the time out and supporting us here by hitting that like button and subscribing. Thank you guys very much. Rich, don't let Mike Maddox pull out the PowerPoint presentation. I saw the meme that you sent me the other day, Lucas. That was pretty funny. Let's see here. Abraham, should the Blue Jays just sign Alonso and Santander right now and keep Vlad and Bo all season? And if they leave, get draft picks, and would still have the other two for the future? That's kind of what the thought process on Alonso is, that you have an insurance policy if Vlad leaves. Only bit of positive news that we've heard about the Blue Jays this offseason is the signing of Hoffman. The idea that maybe an extension could happen with Vlad Guerrero Jr., that optimism coming from a reporter, Hector Gomez. Some happy videos being shown by Vlad Guerrero over the last couple of days as well. Maybe, just maybe, he's getting a deal to his liking via that extension. He does like it in Toronto there, but that championship window is closing, and closing quickly, unless they can get some extensions done with Vladdy, with Bo Bichette, if they bring in other talent as well. Remember, this is a team that did not make the postseason last year with the pieces they have on their roster. They still need to make major additions to this roster. Hoffman does not qualify as a quote-unquote major addition. Now, I've heard conflicting reports about Hoffman going into the rotation or into the bullpen, where he'd be the closer there in Toronto. In either event, he is not the type of pitcher that turns you around from being a non-competitive team last year to a World Series contending team, or even a division champion, or even a wild card team. They still need to make some more additions this offseason. I think they will. I think they have the most money out there to some of these top free agents out there. They were in the market for Shohei Ohtani a year ago. They were in the market for Juan Soto. That money didn't just dry up. It's going to go somewhere, and I think now might be the time they finally spend it. Let's see here. Rafe, the Robert to Mets trade I saw was Robert for Marciano straight up. I'm not familiar with the Mets, but aren't they high on Marciano, especially for Robert? Yes, they certainly are. That would not happen at all. I think it would be a bad contract for bad contract trade. Marte for Robert and maybe a smaller level prospect, but that's about it. Marte does not have positive value at all. Robert has barely any positive value because when he is healthy, he's at least a decent bat. When he is healthy, though, is a bigger question. And the contract there is quite onerous. A team like the Mets could take it on, of course, but they're willing to take on all of the contract of Marte anyway to be able to get him off of the roster, to increase their roster flexibility, put somebody else out there in their outfield, and maybe they go for Robert in that type of a deal. Do I think that's overly likely? Probably not. I think there's going to be another team that gets him at this point, but I think the Mets are going to hold on to their top-end talent. Acuna, Marciano, Williams, among several other top-flight prospects that they have in their system that they've acquired over the last couple of years with the trades that they've made for Verlander and Scherzer going out and bringing in Acuna, bringing in Gilbert, etc. They did a nice job rebuilding that farm system. They're not going to decimate it just to bring in a highly paid, unavailable outfielder for their team. So if they want to bring him in, they're going to do so on their terms, not on the White Sox terms. All right, see here. You predict 30-13 Irish. They beat anybody not named Michigan. Ohio State? Okay. Maybe. I still have faith in that Notre Dame defense. That's a stout defense. Now, Ohio State has finally gotten their offense together over the last 3-4 weeks. That's been the one change that Ohio State's really gotten underneath themselves. And I still think Notre Dame's going to take it, though. Does Pete Alonso walk enough? No, he does not. No, he does not. Lucas, I don't think the Juan Soto contract would ever be awful, terrible, etc., but would be annoying when the time comes. 15 for $765. That's $51 million per year. If they decline the opt-out and decline the option of giving him the opt-out after the 4 years, that contract becomes $55 million in average annual value. That's a contract that at $55 million in 10 years' time is going to be an onerous contract no matter how you slice it up. It becomes difficult to make a team around that. Now they are the Mets. They have Cohen's pocketbooks. Maybe, just maybe, it won't matter. Maybe Cohen sells the team by the time that era of the contract really hits. But the Mets with Cohen's pocketbooks should be able to afford it more than any other team. I think that bat will play even into his older age. I think the on-base percentage will play even into his older age. I think the walk rate actually will go up as he gets older as well. So we'll see what happens, but I think Soto for the next 6-7 years is going to look so good in a Mets uniform, and the Yankees are going to miss having him every time they see him in that Mets uniform. Dashing DePoto likes his trades. Yes, he does. Demon D, welcome back. Any Yankees news? Not too much today. Still kind of looking at third base and bullpen is what they're looking at right now. I did see some headlines as we were coming onto the air about the Minnesota Twins. Remember, they just acquired Diego Cartaya, former top prospect from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now they're interested in a free agent. First time they've really looked at free agents so far this offseason. They're looking at Nick Anderson, one of several teams to be looking at him, but it's good to see Minnesota finally shaking off the cobwebs and entering the free agency fray. Yes, Sloan is basically like there is a prospect the Dodgers have that they can't play right now because of how stacked they are. So the player goes to Oakland for a year and then comes back to LA. Yes, but again, I'd still rather just have straight up trades. I don't like the loan system. How are they going to be able to develop him for the best for what say the Dodgers and Phillies make a trade, right? Or Dodgers and a rebuilding club like the Oakland A's. Why wouldn't the Oakland A's prioritize the development of their own player over the guy that they've been loaned to as far as a quote-unquote trade in return for those guys? So, for instance, say Brent Rooker went to the Dodgers to help them win a World Series. Rooker goes back at the end of his career to the Oakland A's, a World Series champion. Hey, look, we got him back. He's our guy. We held him on to his rights all this time. The prospect that went to the Oakland A's, you think they gave him a fair shake? No. That's why I'd still rather just keep the system that we have here in the U.S., here in Major League Baseball. There's still plenty of kinks, don't get me wrong. International draft needs to be worked out. As far as international bonus pool money, that just needs to go away once the international draft comes in. There are bigger issues as well, deferrals in contracts, retaining salary, how much can you retain, how long can you retain it for, those kinds of things. Just avoid salary cap manufacturing. So, for instance, one thing I don't like about football is that it's all non-guaranteed contracts. You make it look like $100 million contract when really only $40 million is guaranteed. Come on, man. What are we doing here? We're talking about guaranteed money. Now, if you want to have options at the end of the contract, that's a different story. But let's get back to the basics here of what a contract is supposed to be. It's a contract for work. And so the work is the baseball they provide. The contract, the money, or whatever the payment is that they receive, that's what they get in return for playing for that team. I just want to see that be cleaned up a little bit. That and the international draft as well. And you hope DePoto makes a trade soon? Yes, I think Castillo will get moved soon. I would agree. Lucas, or there is a player on a bad team that makes too much money and the team season is over, so they give the dude up to a contender. That's what the trade deadline's for. That's what we saw with Aroldis Chapman when he was traded at the end of his contract with the New York Yankees, got traded to the Chicago Cubs as a mercenary, helped the Cubs break the curse, goes back to the Yankees at the end of the year on a new free agent deal. We don't need loans over here. I just don't like the loan system. Alrighty, trying to catch up on a few of these comments here. Got quite a few of them rolling in. Personally hope Castillo and Young get traded soon. I'm hoping Castillo does. I'm hoping they don't trade one of their younger starters. I don't think they will. Castillo just makes too much money for that rotation. But the other guys have more trade value. So if they're looking to get a bigger piece, a controllable hitter, maybe they go with one of their younger pitchers and keep Castillo. But I think the more likely option is they trade Castillo. Would you do a transfer system if you did a loan? No. No. I do not want loans. What are you talking about? The Angels make smart decisions, giving 7 for $245 to a third baseman who calls baseball not a priority and a season too long is always a great idea. Yeah, that wasn't a smart choice for the for the Angels. Now, granted, at the time, Anthony Rendon was thought of one of the better players in the game at the time. Fresh off of a World Series run with the Washington Nationals, he looked like the steady Eddie third baseman that you were expecting for the next 5-6 years. The 6th, 7th year of the deal might look ugly, but the entire contract from the beginning has looked nothing but terrible for the Los Angeles Angels. And not only did they continue to double down triple down, quadruple down on those type of investments. They keep avoiding going after what they really need and pitching. And right now they're trying to go through a rebuild, retool process, and they're still not going about it very well. I don't know why you like smart baseball decisions. If it's not Texas Rangers, you should pay 15 different shortstops and 12 DHs. Shortstop is, as far as how players are drafted, you are right there. Shortstops is what you usually go for. You basically draft up the middle. You draft your catchers, you draft your shortstops, and you draft your center fielders. If you're drafting a first baseman, they're limited to first base. Whereas the shortstop, if he's got really big bat and everything, he can move over to third base if he can't field too well. If he's in center field, he doesn't quite have the most fleet of foot speed. You can move him over to right field if he's got a strong arm and a good bat. If he can't throw the ball really well, you move him over to left field. If he's a catcher, obviously you can move him over to DH or first base eventually as well. Maybe kick him out to third base. But if you're drafting him at a position that's a corner outfield spot or at a first base spot, your options to move them off of that position later if they can't handle that position defensively are a lot slimmer. So that's why you usually see teams draft a lot of shortstops, center fielders, and catchers. Occasionally you'll see like a really good, high-quality first baseman come into the draft, and they're just like, hey, this hit tool just is off the charts. He has superstar aircraft carrier written all over him. How often do those guys usually work out, though? Usually it's the shortstops that ultimately find a way to get to the big leagues at some point, whether it be at their original position or at another one. Willard, welcome back. I bet the NFL Network and people at ESPN feel now seeing the Texans lose instead of win. Instead won, plus any Astros news, plus overseas Astros signing or no. First on the Texans. Yes, I'm sure ESPN's kind of eating their words right now, especially Rex Ryan. But the Texans really took it to them in the second half. That defense is what really won them the game. As for the Astros, any news on them? They're still looking to trade Ryan Presley and use the money to bring in an outfielder. They're trying to work out an extension with Framber Valdez. I keep hearing reports about teams checking in on Framber Valdez and the Astros continuing to say, no, we're not interested in trading him at this time. No, we're not interested. No, we don't want to talk about it. But I'm sure they're at least getting interest and seeing what the price could possibly be if they can't get an extension done. Now, if I'm in the Astros' shoes, if I don't think I can realistically sign him to an extension, I would be open to the idea of a trade. Mainly because you saw how well the trade worked out for Kyle Tucker. You could probably bring back a number 3-4 type starter in a trade for Valdez and get a long-term piece out of it in addition to that. So if I'm the Astros and the money is just looking like it's going to be too onerous for the Astros to be able to afford, then we could see him possibly be traded before opening day. Do I think it's overly likely? No, because I think even if he gets to free agency, I think he's the type of pitcher who probably gets only 5 years in free agency next year. And at the average annual value, I'm guessing probably around 30 to 32. That's something the Astros could afford if he doesn't raise his market value too much during this season. He is an ace on that staff. The question will be, does he play like it this year, or does he elevate his level of play and become one of those Cy Young type of pitchers this year? Love that offer. I'm just feel like so many teams are waiting for Roki to sign. True. That's why we will have resolution here within the next 10 days. So you're not going to have long to wait, my friend. Welcome back, Sarcastic. Appreciate you joining us. Mountcastle would be good for the Mariners. Yes, he would. Rafe, Vladdy to Mariners going to hit harder than our World Series victory? No, nothing hits harder than a World Series victory for a franchise that hasn't had one in 50 years. So the Rangers have already done the free agency, the winning in free agency, bringing in Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, Jacob deGrom, Adrian Beltre years ago, Alex Rodriguez years and years ago. But how often do you win a World Series? Well, for the Texas Rangers, that's easy. Once in franchise history, that hits harder. Redlegs, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. I can't remember if you've been in here before or not, but if you're new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Would really appreciate the assistance, helping us grow our channel a little bit. What will the Reds do? Good question. I like the moves that they've made over the last couple of weeks anyway, bringing in a couple of former Rangers anyway. They've made the trade for Owen White. I think he's got a chance to break through on the opening day roster with them as either a spot starter for them or a long guy out of the bullpen. But at least he gets a shot there. I think they're still looking for some starting pitching. Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson are the guys that I keep thinking are the most logical fits because they're looking for an innings-eating type of starter. If I had to choose one, I would prefer Lance Lynn of those two. Does that move the needle as far as the Reds and their hopes of winning a World Series? Probably not. But it does at least give them some depth in that rotation if they continue to have injury issues in that rotation or regression from some of their younger starters. So they just need some insurance at the back end of that rotation, and I think Lance Lynn would be just what the doctor ordered for the Reds. They're also looking for another bat even after bringing in Gavin Lux. I think they're going to flex one of their infielders out to the outfield at times, but I still keep hearing reports that they're looking for another right-handed hitting outfielder. We'll see where they go. But the Reds are still active in free agency. Dashing, I like that too, but I fear we trade Castillo. We got to find a replacement for him because I don't like Hancock and any of our depth at starting pitching. I actually do like some of their depth that they have, but I would agree it's not going to be anywhere near what Castillo brought you in that rotation. Now, there are some guys that are still out there in free agency that you may go after, like an Andrew Heaney only makes $12 million. So say if you did the trade with the San Diego Padres that we mentioned, Luis Arraez and Jake Cronenworth, Heaney would easily come in there and be your number 5 in there. I think it'd be a good number 5 in that rotation. And kind of still offset the loss of Castillo while improving that lineup. Now, you'd still have, $3 million left to add another bat. I don't think that'd be the best way to go, though. I think the priority has to be that offense first, second, and third. So if I were in their shoes, I would be looking to go maybe a trade route to bring in another starting pitcher or go very, very cheap in free agency. Instead of giving that $10 or $11 or $12 million contract to Heaney per season, give that to a hitter and then give a $3-4 million deal to a pitcher who can give you maybe 100 innings at best. Jose Urena, I know it doesn't exactly move the needle for you Mariners fans, but that's the level of pitcher you get down to when you're down to that $3-4 million range. And if you're counting on it being in that starting rotation every day, might get a little tough, might get a little tight as far as how production actually works out for you. But when you're losing Castillo, you're expecting a downturn on the pitching side, but you're hoping the trade-off on the offensive side of things will make it worth it. Welcome in, VPCZX. Appreciate you joining us once again. The Jays finally did something. Yes, they did. They finally bring in Jeff Hoffman. Again, conflicting reports whether they're going to use him in the bullpen or in that starting rotation. He was looking for a Clay Holmes type deal. That's what he got. He wanted to be a starter. We'll see if that's how they utilize him or if the reports out there that they're going to use him as their closer are correct as well. But as far as the Jays, they're still looking to try to get that extension done with Vlad Guerrero Jr. Hector Gomez had that positive report the other day about the Jays possibly being able to get an extension done with him, that the extension offer they were going to bring to him was at least in the range of what Vlad Guerrero was looking for. That's the first signs of optimism that I've had for the Jays all offseason. Now, I still think they're the high bidder on some of these other guys out there, but once you get the deal done with Vlad Guerrero Jr., how quickly do those other contract negotiations get solved as well? Because now that you get Vlad Guerrero Jr. signed to the extension, now does Toronto become a far more attractive place for a guy like Santander or Bregman, where instead of waiting on some of these other teams that may give them a contract comparable to what the Jays have, how quickly do the Jays circle back to them and say, hey, now that we've got Vladdy here long term, why don't you go ahead and come on board now that you know we're a little bit more stable as far as where our future is headed. So something to kind of keep in mind there. Rafe, time for us to trade. Time to trade us Vladdy, or we will send Odor back to no, I don't think they're going to trade Vladdy at all, at least until the trade deadline, and even then I have my doubts. But I think there is recent optimism there for Vladdy to sign the extension, and I'm hopeful for Blue Jays fans. I mean, that would be a smart decision for them. They don't really have much to really cling to as far as being a contending team outside of Vlad Guerrero on their roster right now. Alrighty. Lucas, Soto contract would look like how we see a $30 million contract in 2025. I mean, it's as value of the dollar goes down. Yes, but at $55 million, that's still going to be a hefty penny. Even like now with a $30 million deal, that is a pretty penny as well. I think nowadays what we saw a $20 million contract for Jeff Zimmerman going to the Tigers say, what was that, 5, 6, 7 years ago. That was seen as an onerous contract for them. They weren't able to use the money, and then they finally went out there and spent it on Javi Baez, and then now that looks like a horrible deal for the Tigers. What's the next horrible deal, I guess, is what Tigers front office has to be thinking here, is why they haven't signed Bregman or Santander yet. But you can understand the reason why they're a little gun shy. The free agency has not worked out well for them. They've gotten burned a couple of different times on big money deals, and we'll see if they have the stomach for another one in Bregman or in Santander. Rafe, did you see Crochet was in talks with Red Sox about an extension, and they were moving him to the pen? What does an extension look like for him? No, I did not see any of that as far as movement to the pen. I did see talks about the extension pretty much since the onset of the trade. They've been looking to get a deal done now. As far as what that deal would look like, could be anybody's guess, honestly. But as far as moving to the bullpen, I had not heard that one. So that would be an interesting bit of news there. I know they've made several additions to that rotation. I would rather keep Crochet in that rotation. Why? Because a starting pitcher is far more valuable to you than any reliever ever will be. Now, I understand you have a premium closer. Maybe it's a special case, a Mariano Rivera type. But there's nobody in the league that's on Mariano's level. And when you have a starting pitcher that can spin it the way Crochet did in his first year with legitimate time at the starting, with results in the starting rotation, you got to see if he can duplicate it, and we'll see if the Red Sox can strike gold with that as well. You just woke up, all right. Becker, welcome in. Is Sasaki to the Yankees possible? Yes, it is. They are one of the 7 quote-unquote favorites, according to Ken Rosenthal. The other teams that are still in the mix: Yankees, Mets, Rangers, Cubs, Padres, Dodgers, and Mariners, with a couple other dark horse teams saying they're at least still in talks as well. Redlegs, what would the Reds have to give to the Angels for Taylor Ward? I think his value's around 10, if I'm not mistaken, right now, so it wouldn't have to be a whole lot. Maybe a Noel V. Marte. We could do that trade for you here in just a moment as well. Lucas, Rangers fans, hear me out. Tucker, 2K25. Honestly, I think that's possible. Why? Because Adolis Garcia is going to be a free agent. You're going to have the contracts of Molly coming off the books. You're going to have a couple other one-year deals coming off the books as well. John Gray comes to mind. But if they don't get Sasaki, they're probably going to spend that money on free agent starting pitching than an outfielder. Now, if for some reason they get Sasaki and Kumar Rocker, lights it up, and Jack Leiter works out great in the starting rotation, and Bradford holds down his own in the rotation as well, then I think they'll feel comfortable enough to go and spend the money on a Kyle Tucker to replace Adolis out there in right field. That would be a great signing. Talk about a rivalry, in-state rivalry between the Astros and Rangers. That would be something crazy. But I do like Tucker as far as the player. As far as the contract, it could get quite onerous. Do the Rangers have another, $300, $400 million contract in them for a position player? Remains to be seen. They're going to have Wyatt Langford in left field. They're going to have Evan Carter in center. Adolis has got 1 year left on his deal, though, and that could be the spot where it could open up a possibility for Kyle Tucker. Likely? No. Possible? Sure. That's kind of where I see that one going. Liberty, welcome back. Appreciate you joining us. Santander, Alonzo, and Bregman really slow playing who they will sign with. Any predictions? I'm still going to say Bregman signs with one of the Tigers or Red Sox. I think he goes to one of those two teams. I think Alonzo still goes to the Mets. As far as Santander, if the Tigers get Bregman, then I think he goes to the Blue Jays. If the Blue Jays sign Vlad Guerrero Jr. earlier, then maybe he signs even before Bregman makes his decision. If Vlad Guerrero Jr. signs, maybe Bregman even opens up to the idea of the Blue Jays even a little bit more. But I'd say Mets and Alonzo just easily just go ahead and mark that one through. That one's going to happen. Lucas, I want to know how hard did A-Rod deal hit when it happened? Pretty hard. That was the biggest contract in baseball history at that time. $252 million over 10 years. That literally shocked the entire world with that one. I remember ESPN breaking in live to the coverage of the winter meetings for that one. That was kind of earth-shattering in the same way that Juan Soto was, but I think Juan Soto, with his value being the greatest contract ever in professional sports, I think that one takes a little bit of precedence. That needs playing in a bigger market with the New York Mets. Now, the Rangers, of course, still have a pretty good market size right now, but not back then. They had ownership financing issues, which is why they ultimately had to offload that deal, pay down $63 million of it, I believe, for him to play for another team. And they got Alfonso Soriano out of the deal, who did play well for Texas for a couple of years, but make no bones about it, A-Rod's years in Texas are very forgettable. They didn't win, and ultimately, the Rangers now are a far better team than they were at any time with Alex Rodriguez on their roster. Alrighty, try to catch up with some of these last few comments, and we'll get into some news here. Sarcastic Castillo to White Sox for some hitters. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Now, as far as the trade there with Benintendi, Robert, Benintendi is absolutely terrible as a player right now. He does not have any value. As far as Robert, maybe a little bit positive value when he's healthy. Vaughn, not exactly great value either. I get the idea there, getting 3 major league hitters into the Mariners lineup. But, I mean, even the guys they already have there in Seattle are better than those guys. Robert being the only one exception, maybe Vaughn. But Benintendi, his one skill was the bat, and that bat absolutely disappeared last year. And the White Sox want no part of the contract of Castillo. Jose Urena, disrespect will not be tolerated. He was a tank for us despite his bad games. Yes, he was. That's why I like him as a swingman. But if you're looking for him to be an everyday role in that rotation for you, as a number 5 starter, no thank you. Lucas, Vladdy Daddy is down bad. I don't know about that one. I think he would prefer to get an extension done. But I think if he doesn't get the extension done, I think he's just as happy waiting until free agency. Johnny Johnson, wow, I'm late tonight. Wow, thank you for joining us. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. If we are waiting for the next worst contract in baseball, let's just wait for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. No kidding, my friend. No kidding. I had been from Houston. I'd really hate to see Tucker in a Rangers uniform. Well, that's what free agency does nowadays. Rafe, will Trout ever be traded to a contender? No. That contract, the inability to stay on the field, 2 of the biggest reasons why he has negative trade value right now. And I don't believe Artie Moreno is going to be eating money to watch Mike Trout play in another uniform. So he will finish his career with the Los Angeles Angels. Sad, but that's how it's going to go. Rafe, Rangers need to sign Ricky Wild Thing Vaughn, 5-year, $100 million deal. If he was a real player, maybe. I mean, him as our closer, maybe. All right. Let's go ahead and head over to X and just see if anything is happening right now. Garrett Crochet talks. There was the note on Nick Anderson that we mentioned earlier. And then, of course, what we led our show with is the reports today that Santander, Flaherty, and Alonzo are willing to sign for shorter-term deals. Call that hogwash for sure on Flaherty. After signing a 1-year deal in free agency, he is looking for long-term stability, at minimum a 2 to 3-year deal. I think he could probably stretch it to a 4-year deal if he lowered that AAV enough. Santander was looking for $5 and $100 million in change before the winter meetings even began. I think there's still teams that are willing to give him that. No need to take a short-term deal unless he's just wanting to play for a contender on a 1 or 2 year basis and just try to stay in the World Series picture. If not, I think there's contracts out there for his $5 or $100 million ask that he's looking for at the beginning of the offseason. And then we get to Pete Alonso. I think there is money out there on a long-term deal from the Giants, from the Blue Jays, or whoever else might be interested in a first baseman like Pete Alonso. The Angels come to mind here as a team that would definitely overpay for a Pete Alonso. But I think the team that he's going to go back to is the New York Mets. I think the idea that Alonso came up with as far as the Mets being the only team he would sign a short-term deal with, I think are right on the nose. And as far as Alonso goes, I think he probably signs a 1-year deal with an opt-out after the first year, and then another one after the second year, a 3-year deal opt-out after the first and second year, kind of like what we saw with Carlos Correa when he signed with the Minnesota Twins. I think he would do that in order to stay with the New York Mets. I think the Mets are just leery of giving him a long-term deal because they realize how good the free agent class is next year with Vlad Guerrero Jr., and several other options that the Mets could pursue in free agency next year as well. Justin, Artie will never trade Trout. Absolutely true. Rafe, Pete should sign in 1 year with the Rockies and inflate his stats for a better contract next year. Yes, but then the strikeout numbers are still going to be there. The grounding in a double play is still going to be there. The home runs, they already play in New York, so he doesn't need to go to Colorado for that. Why you go to Colorado is to get a couple of lazy fly balls to the outfield to go over the fence, and for that big field that they have out there. So he's not a contact hitter, so he's not going to spray it all over the yard. Playing in New York is still where he's going to have his best results, even with the power bat as well. How about Polar Bear in Arlington, like a Tyus Jones type deal? What did he sign? What did he 1 for 14? Can't remember if that was his contract last year or what. Did he just sign a 2-year, $6 million deal? He's not going to take a discount to come to Texas. I'll put it that way. Alrighty, let's head over to MLB trade rumors and just see if anything's happening over there. And then we'll get into some of the trade talk you guys were discussing a minute ago. Nothing there. Alright, let's see if I can find the trade that you guys were wanting us to do. I know there was one with the White Sox and Robert and Marciano. We can do that one here in a minute. Who is the other one? Trying to see who the other one was in the comments. If you posted a trade idea, go ahead and send it again so that way I can try to find it a little easier. I'm not seeing it though. LA, the hotbed for Asian talent, Otani, Yamamoto, Kim, and Sasaki soon, hopefully. They do have quite the market on that, quite the corner on that market. I will agree there. Lucas, if we are waiting for the next worst contract in baseball, it will be the Los Angeles Angels for a single-player move. Yes, it will be. This is 100% hypothetical, but would you rather Vladdy for 25 a year or Alonzo for 15 a year? Well, Vladdy's going to get well north of 30, first and foremost. 15 a year for Alonzo. Alonzo's going to get well north of that as well. But let's just inflate both of those by $10 million per. Say Alonzo gets 25 and Vladdy gets 35. I still would rather have Vlad Guerrero Jr. Robert for Mets, Marciano was mine. Yes, Rafe. Let's go ahead and do that one first. There was another one in the chat. I just can't remember what it was. So if you guys wouldn't mind sending it in the chat again. Trying to scroll through, but it keeps jumping to the bottom every time there's a new comment. So if you guys wouldn't mind sending it to me, I'd greatly appreciate that. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on arbitration? Very interesting to see the Cubs go to Arb with Tucker immediately after trading for him. Arbitration, I think, is part of the process for major leaguers. You get 3 years of league minimum payroll, and then you get 3 years where you try to go on a scale, essentially, of what players are like, that are similar stats to you, that kind of a thing. And then you hit free agency. You earn the right to be a free agent by having those years of arbitration, those years of service time. Now, the Cubs going to arbitration with Tucker absolutely missed it. I mean, we kind of compared this quite a bit to the Corbin Burnes fiasco with the Milwaukee Brewers. You never want the player to be in the meeting with in that arbitration hearing. I get it. It's his money. He wants to know what his contract's going to be. But he heard all the negative things, the Milwaukee Brewers, that always said great things to his face. Hey, man, you hold it down for us. Hey, man, you're part of the reason we win. But when he went into that arbitration hearing, you know what he heard? You're part of the reason we lost. Your stats aren't quite as good as we say they are to you. You don't impact our team or winning as much as we tell you you do. And so the arbitration hearing did not go well for Corbin Burnes and immediately soured his entire future with that organization to the point where he said, I don't care where I'm going to go next. I am not staying in Milwaukee. I am leaving. And so the trade happened with the Baltimore Orioles. Writing was on the wall that it had to happen, so they maximized his return then. And the rest is history. Now he's a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now for Kyle Tucker, they just made the trade for him. They give up the #1 prize of the trade deadline last year in Isaac Paredes. And they give up the #1 prospect in the Astros system right now in Cam Smith as well to do it. Now you're quibbling over $2.5 million on a guy that you're going to be spending over $400 million Two, if you sign him to a or if you sign him in free agency next year, just absolutely crazy that you're just risking the upsetting a player over $2.5 million just a couple of weeks after you trade for him. So those are my thoughts on arbitration there. Liberty, someone asked the Reds and trading for Ward from the Angels. Thank you. Could Lawrence Butler get traded? Not a chance. Justin Lamas, do teams really believe what they're saying in arbitration, or do they just say whatever they want to save money? They hear all the negative and positive criticism all year long. I'm sure they have their own scouts that scout their own team. I mean, if you're scouting other teams and other players and minor leaguers and high schools, you're darn sure going to scout your own team and just see how your team performs. Just make sure you're not looking through it with rose-colored glasses all the time. So yes, they do believe what they say about it. And yes, they're trying to save money. Both can be true. I highly doubt Milwaukee really believed Burns was the reason they missed the playoffs that year. They just said it because they thought it would save them $740K, and it worked. Yes, but at the same time, what they specifically referenced was his performance in a couple of games down the stretch as to why they lost. And yes, Burns was bad in those, so they were technically correct as well. They were objectively correct in their breakdown of how he both positively and negatively impacted their season that year. And so, yes, saving them $740K, I guess, is the name of the game for arbitration, yes, but at the same time, they bring up those things to save that money. And you hope the player's not in there. Not every player goes to their meeting, their arbitration hearing. Most of the time, it's just the agent. Yeah. Would you rather Kyle Tucker 10 for $375 or Vladdy for 12 for $500? Good question. Thank you, Hank. No matter what, there's an upside. Sports Network, appreciate you. No way Tucker gets 10 years, right? Tucker could get 10. I'd say he easily gets close to that $400 million mark or above. As far as the 12 for $500 or 10 for $370, ooh, that's pretty close. Honestly, I'd have to look at the ages of both players before I give you an answer. If anything, I personally believe the Hader trade sunk Milwaukee's season more than Burns. Yes, but they needed to move Hader, and they finally did it. They actually liked the pieces that they got in return for him. But I get your point there. But down the stretch, the Brewers had a couple of games in September where Burns stunk it up, giving up the go-ahead run a few different times, and that's part of the reason why they lost. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but I am saying that is contributing to the factor of why they lost. Now, would they have even been in that situation if they didn't have Burns? Probably not. Tucker's prediction was 8 for $340. I thought, no way that happens. I think it's getting closer to $400. We'll do the ages here in a second, but let's do this first. White Sox. Robert to the Mets. He's got a $11 million value. That's surprising. I thought it'd been lower. Let's go to the Mets side of things. Who could they give up? Around 11. So Marciano was the guy that had been mentioned. That's about value according to baseball trade rumors, but I would not do that. I wouldn't do Acuna. I wouldn't do Clifford. Bing, maybe. Vargas, Barrow. I would headline it with, if you're doing this trade, I would do Barrow and like a $3 million player. You already have your catcher of the future, so Giovanni Rodriguez doesn't have a fit here long term. Of course, by the time Alvarez hits free agency, will be about the time Rodriguez is ready, I suppose. But you can draft and develop a catcher before then. So, and the White Sox seem to have an affinity for catchers as well. So that would be the trade I would work out. And then the last piece I would do is just to, get Marte off of the roster here. You send him to the White Sox. He's making $20 million. So you send $20 million to the White Sox. And there's your trade. Marte goes into the outfield. Maybe the White Sox flip him for something at the deadline. And then you get a couple of pieces for him as well. Robert slides into your outfield and, probably hits behind Soto if you don't bring back Alonzo. Gives you some insurance in negotiations with Alonzo as well. But that'd be the trade I would make. If you don't include Marte, just take out Marte and the $20 million. Otherwise, there's a deal. Validate it, fair trade, post it, done. Alrighty. How long do Rockies have control of Nolan Jones? I only know about him. He ranked in MLB The Show, but I think he's like a rare bright spot for the Rockies. He had a down year last year for the Rockies. Didn't quite reach the heights that they had expected for him. He was always good in the show, though. I remember that. Let's go ahead and pull him up for you, though. He's got 4 years left to control. All right, so the other one I wanted to look at was the age of Vlad Guerrero Jr. He is 26. I can already tell you which one I'm probably leaning towards then. And then the Cubs with Kyle Tucker. He's 28. So if I had to guess, or if I had to pick one, 10 years at 375 or 12 for 500 for Vladdy, give me the better bat, the bigger impact bat in Vlad Guerrero Jr. because I think he'll be able to stay in the field for probably 6 years of that, and then you can move him to DH the final 6 years of that deal. And I think he will age very much like his dad did, Vlad Guerrero Jr. Vlad Guerrero Sr. And if you can go anywhere near that level of production when Vladdy was, getting into his 40s playing with the Rangers and Orioles, etc., I think you'd be happy with that at the back end of Vladdy's deal. You're paying for the performance during those first 6-7 years of that deal, though. So I would prefer Vlad Guerrero Jr. out of those two. He did have a down year, yes. Is that why people thought he was would be good to show? No. He was actually a good prospect for the Indians a couple of years ago, and then got dealt to the Rockies. Rockies, they thought his offense would really play up there, and originally that was, the initial returns on it were good, but last year it just did not work out so well. It wasn't because of a video game as far as why they thought his numbers would work. It's because his approach at the plate, his discipline, all those kinds of things all look like in Colorado that those tools would really explode, and they never really got to that level. Now, could they? Absolutely. He's still a young player. He's only got 4 years left to control. He's still a pre-arbitration player. He could still reach that ceiling, but again, just another case of how the Rockies just can't seem to get anything going in the right direction. I think that's the best case for it. I hope he has a Hall of Fame career. I have a few cards of his. I don't think Hall of Fame is in the cards, unfortunately, but I think you're hoping for an all-star at this point. I think you're hoping for maybe a multi-time all-star for the Colorado Rockies if he figures it out. I think Hall of Fame is highly unlikely. His cards are cheap, so go get some if you think he will bloom. I think he will bloom a little bit further than what he is right now. But as far as a Hall of Famer, I don't think that's in the cards. Rafe, would you rather have a team built around Big Papi and Corey Seager in their prime, or Jeter and Mario and Rivera again in their prime, and say they all stay healthy? Good question. Both, you're getting a shortstop either way. I'd take it basically as a wash, Corey Seager versus Derek Jeter. Jeter a little bit more of a spray hitter, less home run power. Corey Seager more power, more pull side nowadays. Today's rules, I would probably say Corey Seager, just because you can't shift. Rivera, though, would be a game changer at the back end of that bullpen. As far as Big Papi, nobody performed in a big spot better than Big Papi when he was with the Red Sox. So just for the clutch gene, all those kinds of things, I would probably go with Big Papi and Corey Seager because you're going to have them in the lineup all game long. Whereas Mariano Rivera can only help you if you're winning a game. Jeter can only help you at the top of the lineup, spraying the ball around and knocking people in who get on base. So I would prefer Big Papi or Corey Seager. I haven't ever watched Horn play. Him play, I guess is what you're trying to say. All right, let's go ahead and do a couple of the trades that we had just talked about and kind of wrap it up for the night. The trades that had been mentioned was Ward from the Angels. Let's go ahead and do that one first. I'm not sure what the team was that he was going to go to, but I think the question was what his value was, what would it take to get him. his value got 2 years left on his deal, 15.8. Let's say he goes to the Cubs, or let's do another team that actually needs an outfielder. Um, let's say the Mariners, just because they need offense. So who would be the surplus guy around 15? So you get into Luke Raley, possibly. Harry Ford. Logan Evans. I think that would probably be your first guy out. And then your cheaper option as far as a lower level prospect. Let's go ahead and throw in Garcia. Actually, let's throw in the compensation pick. There you go. There's your trade. Taylor Ward. Validate, propose. There's your Taylor Ward trade. And then the other one was asking about the Reds. Who could they trade for? We could do a Reds trade here in just a second. Ward to the Cards was the trade idea. Okay, we can do one to the Cards as well. MLB the Jam. Like NBA Jam. Let's do this 4-on-4. Okay. If Toronto gets Alonzo, would he be the DH? Yes, if they did get him. So Pete Alonso is still stuck. Yes and no. I think he's still pretty much going to go back to the Mets. I think it's just a matter of them figuring out their dance. I think by the time they get to spring training, he will be in a Mets uniform. I don't think it's going to take all the way through to the start of the regular season. I think they will get a deal done before spring training starts. Let's see here. So let's do another Ward trade to the Cardinals. Why that they would do that though doesn't make sense to me because they're going through a rebuild process. I don't know why they would make this trade. Maybe to bring back Nolan Arenado, I guess, but no, thank you. Eric Fetty, I guess, would be the return going back the other way. I think that'd be a great get for the Angels because they could trade him at the deadline, but for the same reasons are why I want to hold on to him as well. I think Thomas Sagasi. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Former Rangers prospect that they traded in the Jordan Montgomery deal. I think he's raised his value too much now to where you could trade him. Helsley could be traded in this deal. Let's go ahead and do a couple of smaller pieces though, just for kicks and giggles. Validate, Prost. So there's your trade. Ward for a couple of mid-tier prospects. Not bad, but still not getting anything done there. No chance he goes to Toronto. I would say highly unlikely. Agents have been making a lot of mistakes in recent years. I don't know about that. I think teams have found a way to... not saying they're colluding or anything like that, but teams generally value the same attributes, and they generally think the same way. Does that mean that they're colluding? No. Does it mean that one team is better than the other, or one team is trying to do the same thing as another? No. It just means that in general, baseball is a lot smarter. They don't spend like drunken sailors anymore in the 3 a.m. in the winter meetings. You have some owner down in the lobby of the hotel, drunk, and just signs a big time contract for no reason. You don't have those types of issues anymore. It's all business. It's all business all the time, and so. Just a lot more consistency when it comes to evaluation of players, contracts, those kinds of things between team to team to team. If I remember, I'm going to come up with some of those more would you rather have propositions for tomorrow's live. Yeah, those are fun. Send me some more of those. Those are pretty cool. Another thing, would you rather have a Juan Soto or have two players, say Semien and Trey Turner, AAV comes out to be about equal? Well, which Trey Turner am I getting? Am I getting the Trey Turner that was with the Los Angeles Dodgers or the Trey Turner that didn't show up this year for the Philadelphia Phillies? Semien also had a down year, so if I had to guess between those two, I would probably pick Juan Soto and then deal with whatever replacement player I get for not having Trey Turner and Marcus Semien. Let's do a Reds trade to kind of finish off our trade talk here. Now, say instead of going into free agency for a Lance Lynn type of starter, say they jumped on one of these other starters. We've already talked about Castillo. being a possibility to return to them. But let's go ahead and pick a different one as well. Let's do. Who's got another starter? Let's say the Rangers. We haven't done with the Rangers yet tonight. John Gray would be the starter coming out because remember the Rangers might need to save the money there to be able to bring in a closer, etc., etc., etc. You know the story of which I speak there. But his value is also a lot lower, so it's not going to cost a whole lot as far as value for the Reds. Now, what could the Reds give up back? Of course, they could give back Owen White, but I don't think the Rangers would want to go back down that particular path again. I think all of these pieces are just out of the Rangers' price range. I want to look at their major league roster for a second first, just to see if there's a deal that makes sense with a low-cost major league option. Pagan, maybe. Suter, maybe. Martinez, maybe. Nothing really there. And then you get into these guys here. Diaz, I really like. Could be a helpful piece for the bullpen. But they still need more bullpen help as well. Would they give away Diaz? I don't think so. Especially for 1 year of a starter. But maybe they could be convinced. I'm going to put him in there just because. And then we're going to do another low-level player in the minors. Just to kind of round out this trade. 17-year-old shortstop. 18-year-old shortstop. 20-year-old shortstop. Let's do that one. So there's your trade. Validate, post. John Gray, you save your, $13 million in salary. You're bringing back 10 over 3 years. That means you're probably paying Diaz, $2 or $3 million this year. Saves you $10 million against the luxury tax threshold this year. Means you probably have between 16 and 17 for sure after you offload John Gray. Maybe even more depending on how the numbers work on the other deals with Eovaldi and Jock Peterson. But that would be another trade there. All right, let's head over to X, see if anything else is happening at the moment. Doesn't look like it. Alrighty, let's say someone who makes $50 million a year or two players who make $25 a year. In general, I would say two for $25 a year, depending on who that $50 million player is. If it's a generational talent like Shohei Ohtani, give me Shohei Ohtani every day of the week. If we're talking about just a run-of-the-mill a bat at the top of the lineup, say like who could fit this bill? Not Aaron Judge. I don't think he's run of the mill. Say like like Kyle Tucker is going to be. That would make sense. Alex Bregman, somebody like that. Would I rather have a Juan Soto type player or a Aaron Judge type player or a Shohei Ohtani? Absolutely, rather than going the Bregman and Kyle Tucker type of a route. Justin, depends on who the production is you get out of the two $25 million players. Yes, as well. So, meanwhile, like the conversation I just said a minute ago, with the production that you get out of the one guy for 50, depending on who that $50 million player is, there's only like 3 or 4 that I would take that player over the two $25 million players. Rafe, what could a trade between the Rangers and Giants look like if any piece would benefit both clubs? There was one trade idea that I did have between the two teams with Camilo Doval. I just don't see a trade really happening there, though. I think the Rangers, the way they would use him, they already have those spots filled up in their bullpen right now. Sure, they could use him as their closer, but I think that would be the very bargain basement right now for the closer options that they're looking for. Not saying Doval's bad or a bargain basement player. I'm just saying of the closers that are available to the Rangers to try to acquire, he would be probably on the bottom of that list. There's only one player in MLB who makes 50 plus a year. That is Soto. Shohei is the other one, but that is $70 million. Yes. But to me, with the deferrals, his real money value was what, $43 million? Rafe, man, has Acuna been injured again recently? Feel like I haven't heard about him in the last 2 or 3 years. He's still recovering. He's expected to start the season with the Braves anyway, as far as in spring training. But he's going to be brought along a lot slower, so he probably won't play until May. That's why they're going to have to bring in a fourth outfielder that will play every day at the beginning of the season, and then go back to being the fourth outfielder once Acuna is healthy. Alrighty, appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you guys for dealing with our short live that we had yesterday due to illness. Still recovering anyway. I'm sure you guys can still hear it in my voice anyway. But appreciate all the support, well wishes, and all the comments that we have from you guys. It's a lot of fun talking baseball with you guys. And like I said, every single night we're going to bring you all the latest from MLB's Hot Stove. No matter what's going on, we're going to bring it to you. All the latest trade speculation. We're going to chat with you guys. So feel free to hit that like, subscribe, and join us here at the Upside as we keep you guys up to date on all the latest from MLB's Hot Stove. Say Soto versus Bregman and Alonzo. Give me Soto. Thanks, mate. Good night. Thank you, Justin. Y'all have a great night out there. Stay safe, everybody. And well wishes to anybody who's been affected by the multitude of tragedies that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. The New Orleans thing, the Las Vegas situation, and now the wildfires out on the West Coast. Thoughts and prayers with every single one of you guys. Hope you guys are safe out there. The cold snap hopefully seems to be coming to a close sometime soon in the South as well. So better days are ahead, and hopefully you guys take care out there. Stay safe, everybody.